Hi, I'm Nicole Anderson, and this is Beauty and the Brains. This is my very first YouTube video where I do makeup and book reviews. I originally started doing this on my Instagram called The Grand Budapest Book, but I decided to call this channel Beauty and the Brains to just be a little bit more specific about what it is I'm doing here, and on my Instagram I'll just reserve that for any book that I happen to want to read. But on this channel it is only going to be about the horror genre in literature. That and like gothic and suspense and crime and true crime and thriller and just all of the great spooky horror genres. Now I'm doing my makeup, but I am not a makeup artist. I'm just doing my makeup the way that I've been doing it since like middle school, so just bear with me here, okay? Today we are going to be talking about Dracula, and you'll see how this whole gothic, very autumnal look came to be. So sit back, relax, and let's get spooky. We need historical context. What the heck was happening before Bram Stoker was even born? What was hot when he was growing up? Authors and artists do not just create out of a vacuum. Let's begin with the year 1765. So nearly a century before baby Brammy was born. Horace Walpole publishes The Castle of Otranto. I want to say Toronto, but that's not right. So many historians claim that the Castle of Otranto is the very first ever Gothic story. In this story, there's no vampires yet, it's just like super Gothic. But when we jump ahead to 1816, Samuel Taylor Coleridge publishes a story called Christabel, which is a poem about a vampire woman, and yes, she seduces very nice Christian men. You know, what else is she gonna do? So yeah, the sex and the whole vampire thing go back to the very beginning. 2 years later, Mary Shelley publishes Frankenstein at the age of 19. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, I didn't do shit when I was 19. A little bit later, we get a titular vampire title, spelled vampire, but with a Y, not an I. And this story is not based off of Vlad Tepes, for anybody who does not know who that is, it's just Vlad the Impaler. But this story, Vampire with a Y, not an I, is inspired and based off of the poet and aristocrat Lord Byron. So we jump ahead in time again, and Queen Victoria ascends to the throne. It already makes a very anti-sex and super Christian world become even more so. So there's a lot of sexual oppression going on during her reign. And yeah, so I guess the outcome of that was just like a bunch of horror stories and gothic stories, you know. You can't go banging around like how you want to. Society won't let you. So you kind of just take those emotions and make sexy vampire monsters. And finally, Bram Stoker is born in 1847. In this timeline of events, he already has a lot of material to be inspired by, to, you know, read and scare the pants off of him. He was born in Dublin, Ireland, to a pretty conservative family. He goes to Trinity College in Dublin, and he studies to become a playwright, and he does, you know, pretty good job at it, I guess. And he starts to tour with theaters across the UK and the US. Now, if you have read the novel Dracula, then you know that there is a character in the novel who is a Texan in England. Fascinating. I guess he was very fascinated with America, and yeah, I guess it was a pretty cool place back then. In 1868, the typewriter is patented, and it changes the world of what is the novel. He even incorporates the typewriter into the novel Dracula. You know, we have a Texan, we have a typewriter, things are going great. Things are very advanced in technology, just like their pop culture at the time. You know, how like if you watch a show or a movie today, they're gonna have the newest iPhone or like the newest Lamborghini. It's something like that. However, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not recall ever seeing a Dracula movie where the characters use a typewriter in the movie. It seems like they always try to make it a little bit like more back in time. They never do it like how in the novel, how it's just in contemporary times. Yeah, that kind of annoys me. I would love to see a Dracula movie that is a little bit more accurate to the novel, where it's just during the time of Bram Stoker. Also, fun fact, the patent for Coca-Cola was made during the year that the story Dracula takes place. And now we know that Bram Stoker toured a lot in America. He went to like, I don't know, probably every state, wherever they had a theater, he went. So he would have been very aware of Coca-Cola. Not just any kind of Coca-Cola. Cocaine-infused Coca-Cola. Oh yeah. That would be fucking great. Like, could you imagine, you know, cocaine-induced Van Helsing just fucking going nuts, just running around the hills of Transylvania trying to find Dracula's crazy ass? Like, oh, that would be great. Someone's gonna steal this idea from me and make a bunch of money off of it, but that's okay, I'll still watch it. And in 1882, now, okay, I live in Hungary. I've lived like 3 years. I have a Hungarian boyfriend. I'm constantly around the Hungarian language. I understand what people are saying, but I can't speak it very well. So just bear with me with what I'm about to say. Béla Ferenc Dezső Blasco. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Ah, I said it right. Okay. Basically, it's Béla Lugosi. Béla Lugosi, who everybody should know. If you don't know, then I'm very sorry. You're probably too young. Just go watch the Universal Dracula film and then come back and see this video, okay? So Béla Lugosi was the pop icon of Dracula. When we think Dracula today, we cannot take out the image of Béla Lugosi in our head. The widow's peak, the Hungarian accent, the really big dark brown eyes, the Hungarianness. You can't separate the two. And it's very fitting because Vlad Tepes, even though Transylvania is in today's Romania, Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, was in the Austrian-Hungarian kingdom. So he was a Hungarian, not a Romanian. So it's just very fitting that Béla Lugosi, he was just perfect for the role. Like there would be no Anglo-Saxon apart from Christopher Lee who could play Dracula so well. Yeah, this is probably the root of the confusion in Hollywood movies, is that they look up Transylvania and they're like, oh, well, this is where Dracula was from. The Count Dracul was from. Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler. He has a lot of names, okay? And it's most likely that Vlad Tepes wouldn't have even called the area Transylvania. He probably would have called it by the Hungarian name, which is called Erdély. So years go by, and notable works like The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are published, as well as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's A Study in Scarlet, which just add to the horror genre as well as the gothic genre. Now, suddenly, in 1888, Jack the Ripper murders 5 women in Whitechapel, London. Now, Bram Stoker was living in London at the time. It must have been very terrifying. And then, just 3 years later, he starts to write down notes on what will become the novel Dracula. It took him 3 years to write the story, but it took about 7 years for it to be published to a novel. Copyright law was a lot different back then than obviously today. Everything was different back then, basically. However, the way that he went about it was quite interesting. He had to, there it is, beauty blender. What was I saying? What the fuck? Oh yeah, the way that he went about it is he would take the story and he would read it chapter by chapter in a very theatrical way in the theaters. And this way, audiences would know that he was definitely the one who wrote the story. He was the author. If anyone were to have stolen that story, people would speak out. They would say that, no, that's not your story, because you obviously just like wrote it down while he was speaking it out loud. So he went around, he did like these tours, these theatrical tours where he would just read out loud from the book. And then once it became popular through word of mouth that people were familiar with the story, he decided to publish it. And it didn't affect the book sales in any way. People bought it like crazy when it first came out. It was very successful. People were familiar with this kind of story already. It's not a story that just came out of the blue. It wasn't even the first vampire story. So he goes on to write 2 more horror stories before his death. One of them is called The Jewel of 7 Stars and The Lair of the White Worm. I haven't read either of those, but I'm definitely wanting to, you know, just out of curiosity. From everything that I've read about the books, they're supposedly not as great as Dracula, but I mean, might as well give them a read anyway. So Bram Stoker dies April 20th of 1912. So the very first movie adaptation of the story of Dracula is Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, and it's created by F.W. Murnau, who is a German expressionist filmmaker, one of my favorite filmmakers. Now, F.W. Murnau contacted Bram Stoker's widow, Florence Stoker, about the rights, and she was like, no, I don't know why, but she was like, no, she said no. So what they did is that they were like, let's just change it up a little bit. But they like barely changed anything, and it was just very obvious that it was still the story of Dracula. And she sues the shit out of them, and she wins, you know, so I guess like good for her, but yeah. Some 22 years after Stoker's death, the official first stage play is written and it's shown all over Britain. This stage play will later go on to Broadway and will become the Universal film of Dracula. Bela Lugosi actually started to do his entire career as a theater actor. He started here in Hungary, here in Budapest, and then he moved to America. It just, you know, luck struck, and he was the perfect role. He was the perfect person to play Dracula. Let's get into the actual novel. I promise I will not spoil anything. If you're listening right now and you think that I am spoiling something or something might sound like a spoiler, you have my true word in that I'm not. Now, if you have seen basically every single Dracula movie there is out there, I also promise you that I'm really not spoiling that much of the novel, because even if you have seen, like, let's say every single Dracula movie out there, you're still gonna have such a different experience reading the novel that you can't spoil it for yourself. I've seen so many Dracula movies, and when I first read Dracula when I was 16, it didn't ruin anything for me. It was still such a shocking and amazing experience. Reading experience that I had, despite 20 Dracula films under my belt. Oh, are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, let me film it. Oh, sorry, had to have a candy break. As I was saying, the novel is written in an epistolary format, which means that it is written in this sort of, well, not sort of, it is written in a letter format, so it's dialogue that is just letters going back and forth to the characters, as well as their personal journal diary entries. We are the omnipresent character. We get to read all of these private things, and there are some stylistic choices that are a little bit odd that Stoker kind of implemented, where so Van Helsing, the vampire hunter, he's a Dutchman who speaks like perfect English. However, it is well noted that he has this very heavy Dutch accent. And Stoker makes use of this Dutch accent all the time. And so by stylistic choices, I mean that the entire time that Van Helsing speaks in the novel, it's phonetic English, so that you really get through that this is a Dutch English accent. Now, what doesn't make sense to me is why. So, okay, the characters, Mina and Jonathan Harker, they're writing letters back to each other. And Mina says to Jonathan Harker that there's this man, Van Helsing, and he's doing this, he's doing that. And whenever she's quoting Van Helsing, she never writes down just normal English. She writes it in the phonetic Dutch English that Van Helsing uses. So, for example, my mother is a Chilean, And when she speaks English, she has a very heavy Chilean accent. You can understand her perfectly, it's just an accent. And let's say that something happens with me and my mother, and then my mother leaves, or I'm writing a letter to, let's say, my boyfriend. I'm describing to my boyfriend what happened. And let's say it's something as serious as a freaking vampire trying to kill your boyfriend, and you say, oh, well, my mom said, and then I'm writing out her Spanish accent. Like, no, like, you don't just, it's a very strange stylistic choice when, yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna leave it at that. We have different standards with novels today. So some things about Dracula that might, you know, the writing in Dracula that might annoy you, or you might think that the writing isn't very good. It's really probably just because it's a product of its time. It has enchanting Gothic writing. I mean, enchanting. It's one of those books where the very first sentence just draws you right in. There is a lot in this novel that will throw you off regarding the whole vampire law, on how to kill a vampire, what vampires do and what they don't do. I don't want to spoil too much. Just know that if you've seen a lot of vampire movies, which I'm sure that you have, just know that there are a few things where you're gonna be like, oh, well, you know, why did that character try to kill him this way? And they've never shown that in any of the movies. Well, you're in for, you know, a thing when you read the novel. Some things are very quite different. You might even like it more than any of the movies you've seen. This weekend, I will be watching a Dracula movie adaptation that I have not yet to see before. I thought I watched them all, you guys, but I was wrong. There is a Turkish production of Dracula. There's also a Turkish production of The Exorcist, which I've heard is great fun as well. I'll have to give those both a watch, but I'm gonna read The Exorcist sometime, hopefully soon. Now, I will update you guys on my Instagram how I find the movie, how I liked it. To finish this up, I just very briefly want to talk about Vlad Tepes, or Count Dracula, or Vlad the Impaler. Count Dracula, actually, you know, Dracula, it actually means dragon, Vlad the Dragon. Something to do with like his father, you know, it's like a Christian thing about slaying dragons and stuff, and it was just like a family name, like a family nickname. It is said that he was imprisoned here in Budapest, but I don't know. I tried really looking into it, and it seems like he was, but I don't know, you guys. I don't know. There's not that much source material about that, but you know, I'll entertain the idea. So they have a labyrinth here in Budapest that is up in the castle district, and it's a series of caves. Some of them are totally natural, and then some of them have been man-made to just like add on to the natural caves. And they say that those caves have been in function since prehistory times, and that people have been living there since prehistory times. Before, you know, Hungary was a thing, I guess. I've been there, and it is very, very scary. I cannot, unfortunately, do a separate video about... I forgot to do my eyebrows. And I cannot do a video because things aren't really working in that place because of COVID regulations and stuff. And I've already been there before, and the time that I was there once, I just went with just one friend. We just kind of like ran into it, and we were like, oh hey, let's just go in and check it out. Like, it's probably not scary, it's just a cave. Right? No, it was terrifying. We were completely solitary the entire time we were in there, until at the very end of our journey there was like 2 other people. I think they're like German or something, and that has nothing to do with anything. But I would rather go with a group is what I'm saying, and we're not, you know, that's not very recommended today. Hopefully very soon I can do that and, you know, get some night vision stuff going on, make a super creepy video. That would be a lot of fun. I'm not going to go into details about my full experience. I really would like to do a separate video about that. I will also be, possibly, I don't know if maybe I'll just make it into a series of posts on my Instagram or whatever. I still haven't made a decision. But I would like to, show you all the, now I'm gonna try to pronounce this correctly again. Vagyahunyad Castle. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yay! And at the Vagja Hunyad castle, there is a statue, a bust, of Bela Lugosi. And I want to show you all that and the nice little park and stuff. And I also want to show you guys the very creepy cemetery here in Budapest. I think it is pronounced Fiume. I don't know how to say it. But it's a very creepy cemetery. I've already been there once and I've already posted about it once, but I mean, I didn't even really touch upon it really that heavily. I have to organize my time more on when I go there because I don't think that you can go there at night. I think that is like illegal, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna have to go there in the early morning and do it that way because it's gonna take all day. It's a massive, massive cemetery. It's an all-day event. Gothic to me is just like anything purple and black. So please like and subscribe. I love doing these videos so far. I'm really excited as to what this whole YouTube thing is going to be like. I have no idea. It's really just sort of a test run. I really just want to create a community of people who just love horror, love the horror genre, love to read horror novels. Not just about movies, not just about makeup, not just about books, but really creating a space of people who, you know, just really love the horror genre, love suspense, love thriller, love crime, love true crime, all of this stuff, love gothic, love creepy horror monsters. I love it all, and I just really love talking about it, and what better way but to really reach out there and communicate about it. So thank you and see you next time.